The Jacksonville Jaguars just made the rest of the NFL stop what they were doing and stare. Last season, this team finished 4-13. Now they are 9-4, alone on top of the AFC South after a 36-19 beating of the Colts in ugly rain that ruined almost everything except their confidence. Nobody expected a statement this loud in these conditions from a team that was supposed to still be a year away. So the real question is simple. Did the Jaguars just play a good game? Or did they just show us what they are going to look like for the next few years? From the opening minutes, it felt different. Devin Lloyd read Daniel Jones like a book and snatched an interception before the game could even settle, putting the Colts on the back foot right away. Travis Etienne did not put up crazy yardage, but he kept finding the end zone, punching in 2 scores while the rain turned the field into a mess. Brian Thomas Jr. reached out with one hand on 3rd and 5 and pulled down a deep ball that most receivers would not even touch. Tim Patrick fought through contact, threw a defender out of his way, and turned a broken scramble into a touchdown. Jakobi Meyers calmly walked into space against a linebacker in the red zone like he had seen the play before. On the other side of the ball, the defense took on Jonathan Taylor, gave him 21 carries, and still held him to only 74 rushing yards at 3.5 a carry. That is the kind of complete performance that makes other teams nervous because there is no easy place to attack. The shocking part is that this did not feel like a lucky night. It felt like a team that finally knows exactly who it is. The Jaguars are running the ball with purpose, winning in the red zone, forcing turnovers, and trusting their stars to make plays when it matters. At the center of all of it is Trevor Lawrence, standing in the pocket in the rain, ripping throws into tight windows without the old panic and chaos that used to follow him. If this new version of Trevor Lawrence is real, if this is the standard now and not the exception, then this win is more than a big scoreline. It is a warning. So to really understand what just changed in Jacksonville, we have to start with the quarterback and how he finally looks like the face of a contender. But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Jaguars and all the NFL content. Let's aim for 200 likes on this video. For a long time, people talked about Trevor Lawrence like a promise that never fully arrived. The talent was obvious, the arm was real, the size and movement were special, but the mistakes always gave doubters something to point at. Delay of game flags, throws past the line of scrimmage, weird decisions, and big spots. It all kept the door open for critics even after he got paid. Now that same quarterback is running this offense with a calm edge that makes defenses nervous before the ball is even snapped, and the gap between who he was and who he is starting to become might be the biggest story in Jacksonville. In this win, he did not need a wild stat line to send a message. Trevor Lawrence went 17 of 30 for 244 yards with 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, but the real answer was in how he played each snap. He trusted his first read when the coverage told him to, came off it when the defense rotated, and threw with timing instead of panic even when the rain made every throw risky. Some of his best passes were incompletions that hit hands in bad weather, and for once that did not shake his body language at all. The reckless plays that used to show up at the worst time never appeared, and instead, you saw a quarterback who understood that he did not have to force a miracle on every drive to control the game. The quiet part that changes everything is how this version of Trevor Lawrence lifts everyone around him. When he stands tall and fires with confidence, Brian Thomas Jr. can be the deep threat he was drafted to be. Jakobi Meyers can work zones with precision, Tim Patrick can win physical routes, and Travis Etienne can close drives instead of trying to save them. The offense starts to look less like a struggle and more like a system built around a calm leader who finally knows exactly what he wants to be. That is why the next piece of this story matters so much, because the weapons around Trevor Lawrence did not come together the way anyone expected, yet they might be the group that turns this passing attack into a real problem for the rest of the league. The strange part about this Jacksonville passing game is that the wide receiver plan that looked perfect on paper never became reality. Travis Hunter went down and never really got to show what he could do. Dyami Brown did not grow into the steady starter many people hoped for. Brian Thomas Jr. had stretches where he went quiet, and people started asking if he was ready for this stage. Then, out of nowhere, Parker Washington rose up. Jakobi Meyers arrived, and a room that once felt uncertain suddenly turned into a mix of skill sets that fits Trevor Lawrence better than anything this offense has had around him before. Now, every main piece has a clear job that shows up on tape. Brian Thomas Jr. puts stress on a defense the moment he takes off down the field, and you saw that when he stacked his defender and hauled in 3 catches for 87 yards, including that one-handed grab that looked more like a statement than just a completion. Jakobi Meyers lives in the soft spots of coverage, reading zones with Trevor Lawrence and turning matchups with linebackers into easy wins and key downs and in the red area. Tim Patrick brings the muscle, running through the contact, finishing routes with power, and turning a scramble into a touchdown by simply refusing to be moved off his path. Even Brenton Strange adds value that does not always show up in basic numbers, with short catches that keep drives alive and extra effort blocks where he physically pushes teammates forward across the sticks. What nobody is talking about enough is how hard this makes life for defensive coordinators. You cannot double one star and relax on everyone else because each of these players attacks in a different way, and Trevor Lawrence is finally in a place where he trusts all of them. Safeties have to respect the deep ball to Brian Thomas Jr., underneath defenders have to stay glued to Jakobi Meyers, and perimeter backs have to deal with the physical work of Tim Patrick on every route and every run. That spacing opens clear lanes not only for the passing game, but also for the ground attack. And that is why the evolution of Travis Etienne and the big men blocking in front of him is the next piece of the Jaguars story that could shape how far this team really goes. All the deep shots and highlight catches are fun, but the backbone of this Jaguars offense lives in places that do not always make social media. Travis Etienne carried the ball 20 times in this game for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns, and every one of those runs mattered more than the raw average. The Colts came in with a clear idea, stacked the line, clogged the lanes, dared Trevor Lawrence to win it in the rain. Instead of backing away from that challenge, Jacksonville kept feeding Travis Etienne, letting his patience, vision, and sudden burst wear down a front that expected this team to go pass heavy once the weather turned nasty. Behind those carries is a group of linemen who quietly played one of their best games of the season. Trevor Lawrence dropped back 30 times and did not take a single sack, even though left tackle Walker Little was out in concussion protocol. The tackles kept speed rushers outside, the interior handled stunts and late blitz looks, and pockets stayed clean long enough for timing routes to develop down the field. On the ground, double teams climbed to the second level, tight ends like Brenton Strange attached to the edge and finished blocks, and that constant physical contact started to tilt the field in Jacksonville's favor. When you can lean on a defense like that, those short gains in the first quarter become body blows by the fourth. What makes this even more dangerous for the rest of the league is how it fits the bigger picture. A run game that holds up in bad conditions helps the defense stay fresh, controls the clock, and lets this team dictate how a Sunday feels instead of reacting to it. When Travis Etienne is finishing drives and the line is winning at the line of scrimmage, it sets a standard for toughness that spreads to the other side of the ball. You can see it in the way this front seven attacked Jonathan Taylor, in how they swarmed to tackles and hunted takeaways. That is where the story goes next, because the Jaguars defense is starting to look like the kind of unit that can carry playoff games when the offense has to grind. If the score made the league sit up, the way this defense played should make people nervous, like the Colts showed up with Jonathan Taylor, a strong offensive line, and a plan to lean on the run while the rain turned the field into a mess. Instead, they kept bumping into a wall in teal. Jacksonville did not sell out with wild gambles. They trusted their front, filled every lane, and forced Indianapolis to play from behind. The wild part is that Taylor actually finished with the highest rushing total any back has managed against this team all year, and even that did not move the needle. It felt like the Jaguars were in control of the tempo from the first series until the final whistle. Up front, you could see how many pieces are hitting their stride at the same time. Josh Allen kept winning rush after rush, turning pressures into real game-changing plays and adding another sack to a stretch that now looks like star-level production. Travon Walker set the edge with power and showed up in the kind of short yardage stop that breaks an opponent's will. Behind them, Foyesade Oluokun cleaned up the mess, diagnosing runs, fitting gaps, and making sure extra yards after contact were rare. When the ball went in the air, Devin Lloyd baited Daniel Jones into that early interception by dropping into the passing lane at the last second, while Greg Newsome fought through tight coverage to pull down his own pick in a contested catch that could have gone either way. Add in Eric Murray punching the ball out, Antonio Johnson tackling with more confidence, and Jerry Jones playing feisty coverage even when flags came, and you have a defense that is not just solid, it is hunting. The scary part for the rest of the AFC is how perfectly this style translates to January football. A unit that stops the run, hits the quarterback, and takes the ball away can steal games even when the offense has to grind. That kind of edge is not an accident. It comes from standards that get set in meeting rooms and on practice fields long before Sunday. In Jacksonville, those standards have a clear source on the sideline. To really understand why this team now carries itself like it expects to win these heavy games, you have to look at Liam Cohen, the way he coaches, and how his mindset has reshaped the entire culture around Trevor Lawrence and this roster. For years, the Jacksonville Jaguars felt like a team looking for someone to follow. Coaches came and went, messages changed, and every season started with hope and ended with excuses. That has a different feel now under Liam Cohen. He does not lean on long speeches or dramatic quotes. His presence is sharp and direct. When something is wrong, he fixes it on the spot. When someone makes a mistake, he holds them to a standard without embarrassing them. You can see it in small moments on the sideline. The quick corrections, the chest bumps, the way he looks players in the eye after a big play or a bad one. The message is simple. This is who we are. This is how we play. No shortcuts. That attitude has filtered into every corner of the roster. Trevor Lawrence is not being protected from pressure. He is being trusted to handle it. And that trust has pushed him to grow. Liam Cohen has demanded sharper reads, better timing, cleaner mechanics, and the quarterback has answered. On offense, it shows when Brian Thomas Jr. runs a deep route knowing the ball will arrive where it should. When Jacoby Myers sits down in a soft spot and feels the timing with his quarterback, when Tim Patrick blocks like a lineman because he knows effort matters here. On defense, you see it in Josh Allen turning pressure into sacks, in Devin Lloyd reading the field with confidence, and veterans like Foyesade Oluokun and Eric Murray setting the tone with smart physical play. This is a group that understands their coach will praise them, challenge them, and still put the game in their hands. The biggest change might be how the Jaguars now handle expectations. They are not sneaking up on anyone. At 9-4 with a convincing win over the Colts, everyone knows exactly where they sit in the AFC picture. Yet, the talk from Liam Cohen and the players is not about victory laps. It is about what comes next, how to handle the rest of the schedule, how to turn a strong season into control of the AFC South, and a real shot at a high seed. That is where the story moves now. With this new culture in place, the standings, the coming matchups, and the race inside the division start to look very different, and the rest of the conference has to ask itself how far this version of Jacksonville can climb. The AFC South is not built around the same names anymore. For years, this division felt like a battle between the Colts and whoever could hang around them, with flashes from the Texans and Titans. Now the Jacksonville Jaguars sit at 9 wins with the cleanest path in front of them, and that win over the Colts did more than move the standings. It took away the safety net for a direct rival, with Daniel Jones now out long-term, and left the Jaguars holding first place without needing tiebreakers or help. While other fan bases are doing math and begging for scenarios, this team knows that if they simply handle their own business, the division stays in their hands. What makes the stretch run so interesting is how it lines up for a team playing this well. A game against the Jets gives Trevor Lawrence and this offense a chance to prove they can stay locked in against a struggling opponent that will still fight hard. A trip to Denver brings a different kind of test: cold weather and a Broncos team near the top of the conference, the kind of environment that feels like a preview of January. After that come two familiar faces, the Titans and the Colts again, both desperate to spoil a rival and both dealing with their own questions at quarterback, with players like CJ Stroud and Will Levis trying to carry their franchises forward. If Jacksonville wins the ones they should and steals even one of the hard ones, you are suddenly talking about a record in the 12 or even 13 win range and a seed that keeps playoff games in their stadium instead of sending them on the road. That is why this moment carries more weight than a single hot season. The Jaguars are not chasing chaos or praying for slip-ups from other teams. They have a clear lane in their division, a realistic shot at a top seed in the AFC, and a schedule that will show us exactly how ready they are for that kind of stage. The real tension now is not just where they finish this year, but what this run tells us about the next few seasons. Are we looking at a one-year spike or the start of a long window with Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Josh Allen, and the rest of this core? To answer that, you have to pull back and look at the full picture of how this roster is built and why their message to the league feels like it could last far beyond one playoff push. The easy way to look at this win is to say the Jacksonville Jaguars got hot for one afternoon. The truth is a lot heavier than that. You have a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence who has walked through bad coaching, ugly losses, and constant noise and is now playing calm, sharp football in the middle of a playoff race. You have Travis Etienne running with purpose, a receiver group led by Brian Thomas Jr., Jacoby Myers, Tim Patrick, and Parker Washington that wins in different ways, and a tight end in Brenton Strange who does all the little jobs that keep an offense on schedule. On defense, players like Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, Devin Lloyd, Foyesade Oluokun, Eric Murray, Antonio Johnson, Greg Newsome, and Jarrian Jones are not just making plays, they are stacking weeks. Put it all together and you do not see a fluke. You see a core that is learning how to handle real expectations. The deeper you look, the more you see long-term pieces instead of short-term patches. Trevor Lawrence is still growing into his ceiling, not falling off it. Brian Thomas Jr. and Parker Washington are only starting to tap into what they can be in this system with Liam Cohen calling the shots. Josh Allen has taken the step from almost to closer, while Trayvon Walker keeps sharpening the details that go with his power. The front office has added smart fits like Jacoby Myers, Tim Patrick, Greg Newsome, and Eric Murray instead of chasing splashy names that do not match the identity. When you pair that with a defense that already plays top-tier run defense and an offense that can score in the red zone on the ground and through the air, you start to see a blueprint that can survive injuries, tough schedules, and the yearly changes that hit every roster. That is why this 36-19 game feels bigger than one line on a schedule. The Jaguars did not just climb to 9-4, they showed a style that can work in rain, in cold, at home, and on the road, with a roster that is built to stay together and a coach in Liam Cohen who refuses to lower the bar. Around the league, people will say it is only one season, only one statement, only one playoff push. The next few weeks are where Jacksonville can answer that. If this team carries the same edge into the Jets game, the Denver trip, and the final division battles, the rest of the NFL will have to stop asking if the Jaguars are for real and start asking a different question. How many years are they going to have to deal with this version of Jacksonville?